Hello guys and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be fixing up the Darling Valentina skirt that I made all the way back in February. Now, if you've not seen the original video, then you may be confused on what's wrong with it. I'd really appreciate you going and watching the original video, but I know the majority of you won't, so in short, I set a challenge to only use materials I already had, and I did not like how the skirt turned out in that challenge. So this video is me coming back to the skirt, but I can actually buy things for it this time. So, the first major thing that needed to be fixed was, of course, the shape of the skirt. It was deflated, looking like kids dress up, it just wasn't it. But since I had made the skirt to fit that specific hoop skirt, and I had no idea how to measure hoop skirts, I really didn't want to risk getting one that was too big or the same size as the current one, though I did figure something else out. Moving on to the bustle, once again that was just flat and not helping the situation, so I bought a bustle. Bustles are actually these padded pillow looking things that you tie around your waist to add fullness to the behind. And yeah, my plan is to put this under the Darling Valentina bustle so I don't have to sew anything to it. And as I said earlier, I had a plan for the hoop skirt, and that was to buy a hoopless floor length petticoat to wear on top of the original hoop skirt. Bonnie was very intrigued by the dress form having a skirt put on it, so she was just hopping around and checking things out. And basically the whole time that I had the skirt on the dress form throughout the whole alteration process, she basically used it as like a little hideout. She loved being under the skirt and just hanging out under there. Putting the petticoat on top of the hoop skirt was a little bit tricky to say the least, but once I had it all down and flush, it looked a lot bigger volume wise. Getting the actual skirt on was a bit of a squeeze too, but I'd say it looks a lot better than what it was before. Not to mention I'd also kind of put it on a little bit backwards, so I had to try and spin that around. And then it was bustle time, which didn't take that long to do. Then I just added the Darling Valentina bustle on top of that and just smoothed that out, made sure it was all in the right places. Of course, from the original video, I discovered that this type of ribbon couldn't be curled with heat, so what I had to do instead was hand curl the ribbons and then kind of sew them in place. So right now I'm just trying to sort the curl out and then pin it in place, and then later on I'll hand sew it. And Bonnie is just about to pop up. You can just see her under the skirt. I tried stroking her, but she ran off. And this is what pin curls look like. Now, it kinda sorta took me a whole day to sew every ribbon in this curled pattern. So what I did was add a little stitch where you can see each pin, and just did a little stitch and then tied it off and then moved on to the next area that was pinned. And if my maths is right, that's 50 individual places in which I had to sew and then tie off 50. And it was invisible thread as well, and if you've ever had to sew with invisible thread, you know how much of a pain that is. Though, through the magical power of editing, you guys don't have to sit through all that, and we can move on to the next step, which was to fix the drapes. A few of them were longer than the others and it really annoyed me, so I believe this is the one right at the front that was on the left that just like hung really low. So I gathered it where I wanted it and then cut off the extra ribbon and then just sewed that back in place, and it looked a lot better. Now, you either have a really good memory or you actually did as I said and watched the original video before starting this one. You'll know whenever I tried walking, I'd step on the front of the skirt. So what I'm doing here is just gathering some of the fabric at the top of the skirt to shorten the front without affecting the length at the back. And I did that right at the top so that it would get covered by the bow. Going back to the bustle for the last time, I did some really big stitches all along the bottom edge of it so I could gather it a little bit. This took a while to do for like no reason. When it came to actually pulling the thread to gather it, I put the bustle back onto the skirt so I could have a better idea on how much to gather it and all that stuff. And here is the end result, and here's a little comparison. You can see that there's no like harsh line at the bottom of where the hoop skirt is anymore. The ribbons look a lot nicer now. The draping looks a little bit better. The bustle looks a little bit more puffy now, and also I'm wearing the Valentina heels on just to make sure the height was right. Speaking of that, as you can see, I can now walk in the skirt. Back in February, I kept tripping on it. I then found out that this is a good skirt to steal shoes in. There goes me back my heel. That's all for today's video, and as you may or may not know, I'll be moving all future gaming content over to a second channel. So if you like my live streams or in-game Royal High videos, then make sure to subscribe to that channel, which you can find in my featured channels tab. I'll also be polishing a few things up on this channel, such as remembering to feature fan art and channel members at the end of my videos again, so be sure to send in your fan art if you have any. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.